Welcome to Indie Depth, the show where we go in depth with independent filmmakers about their filmmaking process. I'm your host, Andrew Froning, and today I have with me filmmaker of The Farmhand. It's won 11 awards and so many other nominations we couldn't calculate them all. Michelle Elise Harding, welcome to the show.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. This is
Yeah, it's a
awesome.
pleasure. So, The Farmhand was so cool, and you know what I love about it is the locale. It was a period piece to give people background. It's a period piece set in South Carolina, shot in South Carolina, and it did not feel modern at all. So, congratulations on that.
Thank
That's a
you.
hurdle.
Yes, thank you. Especially on something that was no budget. It was a huge hurdle.
Yeah, and now I recently drove down the East Coast and I passed through South Carolina, and just that part of the country is just it's so wooded from the road. It's very wooded. It's very peaceful when it's not raining, which it was for my trip.
Yes. Oh man, you get storms. That was something we were battling too, just throughout filming, especially in the summer. It's tropical weather. You get that Florida weather. We're close enough to Florida. You get storms every day. So yes, I I totally get it. Painfully understand.
So, how did you go about finding these locations that would be adequate for a period piece, and what was the period?
Yeah, so the farmhand was based in 1927, so Prohibition era, which is the basis that drives the story. And when it came to the locations, there is one scene in the film where we had to find a early 1900s jail cell. So we had someone help us with locations. Michelle Malone, she was incredible. She actually was able to find the location in North Carolina for which was the Old Brunswick County Jail in North Carolina, and it was actually a museum. It's just a
Oh,
tiny museum in North Carolina that was incredible, and it's so funny that they even allowed us to film there. They actually allowed us to wear that the costume that you see was actually a prop, like not even a prop. It was a piece that was in the museum, and they allowed us to wear the uniform
whoa!
that one of the jailers wore. Yeah, they were so accommodating, just so incredible. And then as far as the farm goes, our lead Russell Shealy, who plays Grayson Livingston, his family owns the farm, and it's an operational farm, and it was all the buildings that were on the property, they were all early 1900s. And so if it wasn't for Russell, we definitely wouldn't have had our locations. The role was actually written for Russell, and so he was on very, very early on in the process with everything from producing to acting to being a property manager. And so he helped us secure the location with his family, who were so gracious and so wonderful and accommodating. And their property is gorgeous. It's hundreds of acres. And there were so many, like every location you see aside from the jail cell was shot on that farm, because they had so many different buildings and so many different looks to it that we were able to just kind of move around the property. And it's miles long, so we still had a caravan between the places. But yeah, so basically it was a team of us that did it. It was definitely not just me, to get all the locations that we needed.
And it looked great. I mean, even the interiors of the house, was that on the property as well?
Yeah, so that was also on the property. The home actually had a lot of antiques in it, so we didn't have to do set dressing. A lot of them were from that era. It just totally worked out. It couldn't have worked out any better than it did. Yeah, they had antique piano that we didn't go near at all because it was like a prized possession. But they had just all these beautiful antiques, and even their couches and everything was based in that era. So we were really lucky to not really have to do a lot of set dressing. Even the barrels, they had a bunch of barrels on the property. So a lot of the things that we really had to accommodate for were certain props, like the pitchers, mason jars, a lot of the smaller things, of course, wardrobe, things like that. But as far as all of the set dressings and stuff, it kind of all came with all in one package.
That's great. And
Yeah.
how did you hunt down some of these period props?
Oh my gosh, it took about 4 months to finish off all the props, which I guess really isn't that long when you're thinking about filming, um, in terms of filming. But we really scoured. What was really cool about South Carolina is it has so many different antique shops and thrift stores. So even things like the crates, there was, like even just like a little book that Grayson has, that you don't, that isn't particularly uh showcased, but it's just like those little tiny props that make a big difference in a film. So we were scouring all of these different thrift stores for just those little additional props, and even things like the aprons or that Connie wore, or the hats that like some of the background actors and Grayson wore and things. We got these at thrift stores throughout South Carolina. So we went everywhere from Greenville down to Charleston, looking in different thrift stores just throughout this course of 4 months.
Oh wow! And were there any issues with wardrobe? Did you find these in the same places? Did you have anything like custom made?
So Grayson had some things that were from a specific costume store that were specific to the period. He was the most expensive because he had eight costume changes, and he definitely had to have specific pants and suspenders because he was a drifter. So he's one of like those characters that we really wanted him to have the same pants because he wouldn't be like carrying a lot of things with him. So we had to have something that was really good quality that could last him the entirety of the production. We filmed over the span of a couple of months, so we had to find some really good quality things for him. So we got some of his stuff at a costume store, and a lot of what we got was through thrift stores. Actually, everything aside from parts of Grayson's wardrobe were from thrift stores as well. So yeah.
And did you dirty a lot of that up to give that drifter look, that worn um, for screen look? Because I know I've heard from like the making of the movie Alien, like they made everything so dirty, and then when they shot it, it looked a lot nicer than they had done it. So they had to like go over it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what's crazy about just even that goes for makeup, that goes for anything on camera. It doesn't always show up really well on camera. So the only ones that we didn't dirty up that much were the farm hands, the background farm hands. But yeah, as far as the other ones, as far as Grayson and EJ, they had to have some of their stuff dirtied up, and yeah, overall we kind of had to fray it a little. But what's nice is because they were from thrift stores, they were already used and pre-worn, so it wasn't like we didn't have to do too much as
Hmm.
far as dirtying up things or making it look more worn and a little bit more authentic in that way too. I feel like a lot of things with the film kind of came together very well. Like when the more that I'm talking about it, I'm just like everything is just like it just came together in the end.
Well, it worked out.
Yeah.
To just have all that together and such a beautiful, beautiful location. I know you were telling me you had some weather issues on that.
Yes.
How did that? How did you work around that?
Yeah, what's something that's really good about South Carolina is it's warm most of the year except for 3 months or so. We started filming, the first scene we actually filmed was the last scene of the film, and that was in July, and we filmed through October. We were delayed by two hurricanes. And even though we were really inland, we were in Newberry, South Carolina, which is very inland in South Carolina. Um, the hurricanes that came through kind of hit inland, and it didn't help that a lot of us were coming from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina,
Hmm.
which is on the shore. And so because that location, the farm was about 3 hours, 3.5 hours from where we lived in Myrtle Beach. South Carolina is a lot bigger state than New Jersey.
Yeah.
um so it's just one of those things where you can't just drive through the whole thing in 2 hours. So just the crew having to travel so far. We had people in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia traveling for this, and actually one person from Jersey. So having to have the crew travel. we just wanted everyone to be safe. So the hurricanes, when they were happening, even if we weren't personally affected, thank goodness, we still had to cancel filming several times for it and keep pushing things back. And if we had waited one more week, if we waited one more week in October, the leaves would have changed on the trees and things wouldn't have looked the same.
Ooh.
So it would have been really, really, really rough. We would have had to wait till the following year to finish. So again, it's one of those things that worked out really, really well. It was almost like it was meant to happen, and it was very cold. So you can imagine we were going from 115-degree heat on some days in the summer to going to October weather. Poor Carrie Ann. Carrie Ann Hunt played Connie in the film. She's wearing these dresses, and we're going to October weather, and it's even though it's South Carolina, it's still chilly. So it would be, maybe 50s in the morning, and she's wearing this dress. We're like, she's so cold, and
No.
she was a trooper. Yeah. So it's like you go from this huge heavy heat to, costumes that are meant to be, towards summer, and then you're shifting it to the fall. I mean, it was a struggle. We did it though. We pushed through that.
Now, was there anything that was unexpected, something that you needed, or just something that somebody pointed out at the last minute? Oh, this won't work. Any hiccups
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some wardrobe problems, especially when you have some period piece wardrobe that is specific and you can't just go to a store and replace it. We had a hiccup where we lost one of the pieces for the wardrobe, and we had like two production assistants go out and find a new apron at a another thrift store actually. The apron ended up being found. It was just misplaced. It was just hilarious. And we all can laugh about it now, but it was just one of those things we were freaking out at the time, and we just had to keep moving. So like little things like that. Aside from weather, when you are working with a period piece, it's very, very important to also follow what people think is appropriate for the time. So, for example, we had these wanted posters that we made, and we really wanted it. When you think of a wanted poster, you think of it being old, and you think about it being like brown, for example. You don't think of it being clean
Mm-hmm.
and not weathered. And so it's one of those things where we had to weather it because that's someone's immediate perception, even though a wanted poster would be new and, in the 1920s. Some things we couldn't find that were very appropriate for the period piece, like there's a cup that the sheriff drinks out of. The mason jars aren't perfect. When you're working on something that's absolutely no budget, it's very tough to find everything that you would really want. So, like, you might notice that there's no cars. You don't actually see the distillery in the film, just because we don't have distillery money or car money to even rent. It would have been nice to have certain pieces that would have made it even more believable. But overall, I'm so proud of what we did, and it looks pretty good. If I do say so myself.
That it does.
Yeah, thank you. No, we're just so proud of it. Especially just being on no budget. It was definitely my biggest feat to date.